We are joined by Dave Rumsey, front office sports, who sat down with Commissioner Brett Yormark at the spring meetings in Orlando. I reached out to Dave earlier. Jim Williams, by the way, said hi too. He and I shared some information, our good friend of ours. Dave, when you sat down, and we heard a little bit from Yormark again today, but nothing really more than what he had said to you, and you had others as well. What was your overall take on his mood and where he is when it comes to the confidence in the Big 12?
Well, outwardly, he is very confident about the Big 12, which, I mean, I guess you would expect, right? The leader of a conference. And he's been that way for the past 3 years. And he just received another 3-year extension this year. So, yeah, outwardly, publicly, he's very optimistic, upbeat about the conference, showing no signs that he's worried. Now, I don't know if you would maybe go that far behind closed doors, especially considering what's going on with the Big Ten and SEC. But, yeah, all smiles and sunshine for him.
So were you surprised that what once was so bullish on private equity and all these things was now very, very cool? Even something that seemed a little bit simpler is naming rights to the conference.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. When that came out last year, as I'm sure you guys remember, I think it was the Big 12 Media Days last summer, last July, and Yormark was very bullish, like you were just saying, on we want to be the first conference to bring in a private equity partner. We think we can sell our naming rights, bring in all this cash. And they got a lot of people excited about how they could maybe compete with the Big Ten and SEC despite not having quite as lucrative of media rights deals or having the big brand names that those other conferences have. So, yeah, I think we all thought it was kind of a done deal with the way they were talking about it last year, at least the way Brett Yormark was. And, nothing really ever happened. So, when I learned I was going to get some one-on-one time with Commissioner Yormark, I was just thinking, hey, I don't really know what the update is here. I never heard anything one way or the other. So I really appreciated his candidness to kind of tell us where that is at. And yeah, a little surprising, but not too surprising given that when you do these type of things, you have to talk to the university presidents and chancellors, and they answer to their boards and athletic directors. And it's a lot to get something like that approved from all ends. So I understand why maybe they had to table it for now.
Dave, just what kind of your impressions of sitting down with him? And just he's a East Coast kind of a fast talker, but not necessarily who you'd have pegged for the Big 12 when they were making that decision. But he's made his home there. Just kind of what are your impressions of just chatting it up and a guy who's obviously had a lot of experience in sports?
Protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com.
I think he's great for the conference. Obviously, he made a huge move early in his tenure by kind of muscling out the Pac-12, if you will, getting that media rights deal done for the Big 12 with Fox and ESPN that kind of made it so that there was not really any room for the Pac-12 to get a media rights deal, and that kind of led to their demise. So I think in one sense, he's been great. He helped the Big 12 survive, grow to 16 teams now. Yes, they're not the Big 10 or the SEC, but I think it could be argued, at least for football, they're in a better spot than the ACC is moving forward. So yeah, certainly he's not a college football lifeblood, doing this for his entire life. He came from a lot of other stops, Rock Nation, the Brooklyn Nets. So yeah, he's been around the block and an interesting character for the Big 12. But like I said, just got an extension, and he seems to be really loving the challenge of trying to compete, even though they're not the top dog like an SEC or Big 10.
You sat down with him. Is this the first time you've ever interviewed him?
First time I've interviewed him.
Okay,
yes.
We've had him on. We were fortunate. We've had him on a handful of times. We'll see him in Frisco at Big 12 Media Days in July. But one of the things I liked about him is when he was talking, it seemed like everything he said was not programmed, that it's not something that he's corporate, even though he's been a part of that in a way. Is that what you got the feeling with as well, that he was looking you eye to eye and this is exactly how he felt?
Yeah, I think when it comes to certain things, like for the college football playoff, For
Mhm.
example, he has his messaging down there. They support the 5+11 model. So he's kind of, when you get those type of questions, he's not going to give you too much more because that's just really all he can say, whether it's a one-on-one or a press conference or text message or whatever. But yeah, when we're starting to get into the kind of businessy things that I was asking about, whether it's the private equity or the naming rights deal that, maybe wasn't as discussed by many others until we brought it up this week. Yeah, he's very candid. And yeah, I think he realizes that for the Big 12, they're not, I keep bringing up the Big 10 and SEC, but he has to approach everything differently. And that includes media and fans and being open and being honest. So I think that definitely is his approach when he's trying to get his message out in whatever way that is.
Dave, what is your personal take on where this should go and where you think it will go when it comes to the CFP?
So I think it's pretty clear at this point after this week that we're going to go to 16 teams for 2026. If I had to put money on it right now, I would say it's going to be that 5+11 model with the top 5 conference champions and then 11 at-large bids. Although it seems like there may still be some pushback from Big 10 schools and or some SEC schools, but that seems to me like the most logical thing. Let's grow to 16. That's going to be more on-campus home games. You're not going to have to worry about first-round buys anymore. And keep in mind, I was talking about this with Commissioner Yormark, the revenue sharing and the distribution is changing in 2026 anyways. So right now we have this kind of performance-based system where if you make it to the next round, your conference gets a little bit more money. But really in the future, it's not going to be as based as much around that and more so just the SEC and the Big 10 are going to kind of get their share, which is going to be the majority, and then everybody else. So it's really just fighting for relevance and getting your schools in there. You're not worried about the extra $4 million payout if you make it to the next round. So yeah, I think 16 for sure. And if I had to put money on it, I would say that 5+11 model that they've been discussing this week. But as with everything with college football playoff related, it can get crazy and sometimes things kind of come out of nowhere and happen quickly. So I wouldn't hold myself to that, I guess I should say.
Dave, you asked him the question about the private equity. Going back to that, was there good value available if you were ready to take that next step? Have you heard otherwise, or did you know whether or not that they got at least a lot of interest that might lead, as you mentioned, to something, or he did down the road?
Yeah, and the way he said it was, well, it depends on what your definition of value is. And I believe him on that because I do think that there was probably multiple private equity firms that were willing to put up hundreds of millions of dollars. The reporting last summer was up to $1 billion for, I think, around 20% stake in the conference or their commercial rights, however you want to split that up. So yes, I think there was a lot of money to be had. But going back to what I was saying earlier, I think Yormark was probably like, hey, let's do it. Let's push forward this new age. And it's just hard to get, he's referenced to me, the Big 12's board, which is a bunch of university presidents and chancellors and other officials and things like that who might have a little bit more old school mentality. And, he says that they are now focused on other revenue streams, maybe more commercial deals, other sponsorships that they can sell that's not selling the name of their conference or letting private equity own, taking an ownership stake in them. So I think the value was there, but I think there just might have been the hesitance from the Big 12's leaders and the people that had to approve it to actually go forward with it.
Do you think the NFL's foray into private equity had anything to do with their change? Because the NFL did that this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, you would think that because the NFL has now done it and it seems to be, multiple teams have done it now and, nothing has gone wrong so far for them. I know private equity gets a bad rap of, coming in and maybe destroying businesses or, just capitalizing on them and then, selling off. So if anything, you would think that if the NFL can do it, then colleges would want to follow suit. But I think we're just still in this such weird time of, yes, college sports, especially football and basketball, are becoming more professionalized, and you have GMs and front offices more so in college programs, more so now than ever. They look like professional programs, but they're still universities, and we're still waiting on this house settlement and revenue sharing. So I think as they get more professionalized, then it might be easier to take that step of, hey, it's not as big of a deal to bring in a private equity partner if somebody wants to give us some capital in that way.
College athletic departments are bringing in more money than anyone could ever have imagined. And of course, you have the house settlement that's still sitting out there, which could be a $20.5 million hit. But then the expansion of the men's basketball tournament, most of us are not for that. We feel like, why mess with a good thing? But they are looking to find money. I saw the title, media exec on Matt. This is with you and also Michael McCarthy. Media exec on March Madness expansion, potential chump change. So, I mean, is that they're going to be able to write whatever they want to get?
Yeah, no, I think what that means is the CBS, the NCAA is hoping to bring in some more revenue by adding these extra games with the March Madness NCAA tournament. And maybe CBS and TNT don't see as much of a value, just like you're saying, hey, we don't want this. They might be saying, the media companies that have the media rights, hey, we don't need this. We're good. So if you want to expand, we might give you a little bit more money, but we're not going to be paying up big time for these early round games. You know, obviously if we go up to 76 and it's just some more playing games instead of the first 4, you know, we end up having the first 8 or, you know, whatever it is. And you're going to have a lot more of those kind of bubble teams from your SEC, from Big Ten, your Power 4 conferences that aren't getting in now because this isn't going to really affect the automatic qualifiers. Those are still going to get in and slotted. So I get where they're coming from. You know, do we really need more games on that Tuesday and Wednesday of March Madness leading into the, you know, craziness, mayhem that is Thursday and Friday of the first round of the NCAA tournament every year? And yeah, certainly the NCAA and the conferences would like a little bit more money. But yeah, to your point, I mean, as Baker's comments came out this week, and you know, when I tweeted them out, the replies and the quote tweets were just hilarious because everybody just did not want it to happen and made their opinions very clear.
All right, last thing, and we'll let you go. And thanks for joining us. A great article today. Part of your bio, you can find David on the golf course, usually getting as many strokes as possible. Who wants to shoot a low score anyway? Did you play today wearing that hat and the golf shirt you're wearing today?
No, unfortunately not today, but got plenty of golf shirts. So, you know, they're comfortable, right?
Oh, yeah. That's what I wear.
It's like wearing an athletic clothes, but it looks nicer with the collar on it. But yeah, love to play golf, talk about golf, write about golf anytime I can.
Hey, man, thanks for joining us today. Great stuff, but we'll have you on again, okay?
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. Dave Rumsey with Front Office Sports. And